Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. All of you astute hearers out there in Cyberland had detected that there was something else playing in the background, and you were right, there was something playing on the phone. We couldn't hear it, and it was very unusual. It was some kind of glitch or something that happened without our knowledge, so we apologize to everyone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read everything that I read again, and we're going to we'll just delete what we just recorded, and we'll only post what I'm going to read now. I'll repeat one thing I said in the very beginning, and that is that in the middle of a Holocaust in the world, the whole world is burning in the fire of grief and disease and mourning for those who have left this world as a result of this coronavirus. And now there are violent protests going on all over America. Huge parts of different cities are burning down. We shouldn't be surprised by this because the extent of sense gratification that is spread all over the world, and especially in America, because America lives a very opulent life in general, although now there is poverty and there are economic inequality like nowhere else, maybe. But the reactions of material nature are very clear. The whole world is being corrected, at least material nature. Krishna, through the material nature, is trying to correct the material world. But here we sit in Hythe, a very small community in the southeast of England, where there are hardly any coronavirus people who have the virus, and I don't think there's been any deaths in this small place where we're staying now. It's very safe, relatively speaking. But still, we shouldn't be surprised because the Kali Yuga is progressing, and it will progress. Even if we expand our Krishna consciousness movement, the Kali Yuga will continue to go on simultaneously. And but we can taste ourselves complete relief while we're hearing the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and especially this chapter is very, very sweet. Lord Chaitanya, in Ädi-lilä chapter 4, he is describing the confidential reasons of his appearing in this material world. So I'm going to start again from text 237. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay. So now Krishna is saying out of fear of those persons who are so ignorant that they cannot understand and will misunderstand, he doesn't wish to speak, but if he doesn't speak, those who can understand will not understand, and he cannot be happier if those who do not understand do not understand. He's very happy. So with that, we will start. Ädi-lilä Caitanya-caritämrta, chapter 4, starting with 237. Therefore, after offering obeisances to the devotees, for their satisfaction, I shall speak without hesitating. 238. Once Lord Krishna considered within his heart, that was Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, by the way. Once Lord Krishna considered within his heart, everyone says that I am complete bliss, full of all rasas. 239. All the world derives pleasure from me. Is there anyone who can give me pleasure? 240. One who has 100 times more qualities than me could give pleasure to my mind. 241. One more qualified than me is impossible to find in the world. But in Radha alone, I feel the presence of one who can give me pleasure. 242 and 243. Although my beauty defeats the beauty of 10 million cupids, although it is unequaled and unsurpassed, and although it gives pleasure to the three worlds, seeing Radharani gives pleasure to my eyes. 244. The vibration of my transcendental flute attracts the three worlds, but my ears are enchanted by the sweet words of Srimati Radharani. Although my body lends fragrance to the entire creation, the scent of Radharani's limbs captivates my mind and heart. Although the entire creation is full of different tastes, because of me, I am charmed by the nectarian taste of the lips of Srimati Radharani. And although my touch is cooler than 10 million moons, I am refreshed by the touch of Srimati Radhika. Thus, although I am the source of happiness for the entire world, the beauty and attributes of Sri Radhika are my life and soul. In this way, my affectionate feelings for Srimati Radharani may be understood. But on analysis, I find them contradictory. 250. My eyes are fully satisfied when I look upon Srimati Radharani, but by looking upon me, she becomes even more advanced in satisfaction. The flute-like murmur of the bamboos rubbing against one another steals Radharani's consciousness, for she thinks it to be the sound of my flute, and she embraces a tamal tree, mistaking it for me. I have gotten the embrace of Sri Krishna, she thinks, so now my life is fulfilled. Thus she remains immersed in pleasing Krishna, taking the tree in her arms. When a favorable breeze carries to her the fragrance of my body, she is blinded by love and tries to fly into that breeze. When she tastes the betel nut chewed by me, she merges into an ocean of joy and forgets everything else. Even with hundreds of mouths, I could not express the transcendental pleasure she derives from my association. Seeing the luster of her complexion after our pastimes together, I forget my own identity in happiness. The sage Bharat has said that the mellows of lover and beloved are equal, but he does not know the mellows of my Vrindavan. Purport. According to the expert sexologists like Bharat Muni, the male and the female enjoy equally in material sexual pleasure, but in the spiritual world the relationships are different, although this is unknown to mundane experts. 258. The happiness I feel when meeting Radharani is 100 times greater than the happiness I get from meeting others. My dear auspicious Radharani, your body is the source of all beauty. Your red lips are softer than the sense of immortal sweetness. Your face bears the aroma of a lotus flower. Your sweet words defeat the vibrations of the cuckoo, and your limbs are cooler than the pulp of sandalwood. All my transcendental senses are overwhelmed in ecstatic pleasure by tasting you, who are completely decorated by beautiful qualities. Purport. This verse spoken by Lord Krishna to Radha is recorded in the Lalita Madhava 9:9 of Srila Rupa Goswami. Text 260. Her eyes are enchanted by the beauty of Lord Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa. Her body thrills in pleasure at his touch. Her ears are always attracted to his sweet voice. Her nostrils are enchanted by his fragrance, and her tongue hankers for the nectar of his soft lips. She hangs down her lotus-like face, exercising self-control only by pretense, but she cannot help showing the external signs of her spontaneous love for Lord Krishna. Purport. Thus Srila Rupa Goswami describes the countenance of Radharani. 261. Considering this, I can understand that some unknown mellow in me controls the entire existence of my captivator, Srimati Radharani. I am always eager to taste the joy that Radharani derives from me. In spite of various efforts, I have not been able to taste it, but my desire to relish that pleasure increases as I smell its sweetness. Text 264. Formerly, I appeared in the world to taste mellows, and I tasted the mellows of pure love in various ways. I taught devotional service that springs from the devotee's spontaneous love by demonstrating it with my pastimes. But these three desires of mine were not satisfied, for one cannot enjoy them in a contrary position. Unless I accept the luster of the ecstatic love of Sri Radhika, these three desires cannot be fulfilled. Therefore, assuming Radharani's sentiments and bodily complexion, I shall descend to fulfill these three desires. In this way, Lord Krishna came to a decision. Simultaneously, the time came for the incarnation of the age. Text 270. At that time, Sri Adwaita was earnestly worshipping him. Adwaita attracted him with his loud calls. First, Lord Krishna made his parents and elders appear. Then Krishna himself, with the sentiments and complexion of Radhika, appeared in Navadvip, like the full moon from the womb of Mother Shachi, which is like an ocean of pure milk. 273. Meditating on the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Goswami, I have thus explained the 6th verse. I can support the explanation of these two verses, verses 5 and 6 of the first chapter, with a verse by Sri Rupa Goswami. Apadam kasyapi pranayi janavrindasya kutuki rasastomam hritva maduram upabhoktum kamapi yaha rucham swam avre rucham swam avavre yutim ihatidiyam prakatayan sadevas chaitanya-caritämrta atitarang nak kripayatu. Lord Krishna desired to taste the limitless nectarian mellows of the love possessed by one of his multitude of loving damsels, Sri Radha, and so he has assumed the form of Lord Chaitanya. He has tasted that love while hiding his own dark complexion with her effulgent yellow color. May that Lord Chaitanya confer upon us his grace. Purport: this is the third verse of the second Chaitanya-ashtaka of Srila Rupa Goswami's Stavamala. Text 276. Thus, the auspicious invocation, the essential nature of the truth of Lord Chaitanya, and the need for his appearance have been set forth in 6 verses. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Padiyara Ash Caitanya-caritämrta Kahe Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Shri Rupa and Shri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, Ädi-lilä, 4th chapter, describing the confidential reasons for the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. Jai Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Shri Radha and Krishna ki jai. The residents of Sri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Okay. I don't know what we can read after that. But we will move on. Chapter 5. The glories of Lord Nityananda Balarama. This chapter is chiefly devoted to describing the essential nature and glories of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Lord Sri Krishna is the absolute personality of Godhead, and his first expansion in a form for pastimes is Sri Balarama. Beyond the limitation of this material world is the spiritual sky, Paravyoma, which has many spiritual planets, the supreme of which is called Krishna Loka. Krishna Loka, the abode of Krishna, has 3 divisions, which are known as Dwaraka, Mathura, and Gokula. In that abode, the personality of Godhead expands himself into 4 plenary portions: Krishna, Balarama, Pradyumna, the transcendental Cupid, and Aniruddha. They are known as the original quadruple forms. In Krishna Loka is a transcendental place known as Shweta-dweep, or Vrindavan. Below Krishna Loka, in the spiritual sky, are the Vaikuntha planets. On each Vaikuntha planet, a 4-handed Narayana, expanded from the first quadruple manifestation, is present. The personality of Godhead known as Sri Balarama in Krishna Loka is the original Sankarshan, attracting deity. And from this Sankarshan expands another Sankarshan called Maha Sankarshan, who resides in one of the Vaikuntha planets. By his internal potency, Maha Sankarshan maintains the transcendental existence of all the planets in the spiritual sky, where all the living beings are eternally liberated souls. The influence of the material energy is conspicuous there by its absence. On those planets, the second quadruple manifestation is present. Outside of the Vaikuntha planets is the impersonal manifestation of Sri Krishna, which is known as Brahmaloka. On the other side of Brahmaloka is the spiritual Karana Samudra, or causal ocean. The material existence exists on the other side of the causal ocean without touching it. In the causal ocean is Mahavishnu, the original Purusha expansion from Sankarshan. Mahavishnu places his glance over the material energy, and by a reflection of his transcendental body, he amalgamates himself within the material elements. As the source of the material elements, the material energy is known as pradhan. And as the source of the manifestations of the material energy, it is known as Maya. But material nature is inert in that she has no independent power to do anything. She is empowered to make the cosmic manifestation by the glance of Mahavishnu. Therefore, the material energy is not the original cause of the material manifestation. Rather, the transcendental glance of Mahavishnu over material nature produces that cosmic manifestation. Mahavishnu again enters every universe as the reservoir of all living entities, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. From Garbhodakashayi Vishnu expands Chirodakashayi Vishnu, the supersoul of every living entity. Garbhodakashayi Vishnu also has his own Vaikuntha planet in every universe, where he lives as the supersoul, or supreme controller of the universe. Garbhodakashayi Vishnu reclines in the midst of the watery portion of the universe and generates the first living creature of the universe, Brahma. The imaginary universal form is a partial manifestation of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. On the Vaikuntha planet, in every universe is an ocean of milk, and within that ocean is an island called Shweta-dweep, where Lord Vishnu lives. Therefore, this chapter describes two Shweta-dweeps, one in the abode of Krishna and the other in the ocean of milk in every universe. The Shweta-dweep in the abode of Krishna is identical with Vrindavan Dham, which is the place where Krishna appears himself to display his loving pastimes. In the Shweta-dweep within every universe is a Shesha form of Godhead who serves Vishnu by assuming the form of his umbrella, slippers, couch, pillows, garments, residence, sacred thread, throne, and so on. Lord Baladev in Krishna Loka is Nityananda Prabhu. Therefore, Nityananda Prabhu is the original Sankarshan, and Maha Sankarshan and his expansions as the Purushas in the universes are plenary expansions of Nityananda Prabhu. In this chapter, the author has described the history of his leaving home for a personal pilgrimage to Vrindavan and is achieving all success there. In this description is revealed that the author's original parental home and birthplace were in the district of Katpa, in the village of Jamatapur, which is near Naihati. Krishnadas Kaviraj's brother invited Sri Minikitan Ramdas, a great devotee of Lord Nityananda, to his home. But a priest named Gunarnava Mishra did not receive him well, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's brother, not recognizing the glories of Lord Nityananda, also took sides with the priest. Therefore Ramadas became sorry, broke his flute, and went away. This was a great disaster for the brother of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. But on that very night, Lord Nityananda Prabhu himself graced Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in a dream and ordered him to leave on the next day for Vrindavan. Text 1. Vande Nanta Bhutaishwaryam Sri Nityanandam Ishwaram Yasyechchaya Tatsarupam Agyayapi Nirupyate. Let me offer my obeisances to Lord Sri Nityananda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose opulence is wonderful and unlimited. By his will, even a fool can understand his identity. Text 2. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda. All glories to Advaita Chandra. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 3. I have described the glory of Sri Krishna Chaitanya in 6 verses. Now in 5 verses, I shall describe the glory of Lord Nityananda. Text 4. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the fountainhead of all incarnations. Lord Balarama is his second body. Purport. Lord Sri Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, is the primeval Lord, the original form of Godhead, and his first expansion is Sri Balarama. The personality of Godhead can expand himself in innumerable forms. The forms that have unlimited potency are called Shvangsa, and forms that have limited potencies, the living entities, are called Vibhinangsha. Text 5. These two are one and the same identity. They differ only in form. Lord Balarama is the first bodily expansion of Krishna, and he assists in Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. Purport. Balarama is a Shvangsha expansion of the Lord, and therefore there is no difference in potency between Krishna and Balarama. The only difference is in their bodily structure. As the first expansion of Godhead, Balarama is the chief deity among the first quadruple forms, and he is the foremost assistant of Sri Krishna in his transcendental activities. Text 6. That original Lord Krishna appeared in Navadvip as Lord Chaitanya, and Balarama appeared with him as Lord Nityananda. Text 7. Sankarshanak Karanatoyashayi Garbhodeshayi Chaprayobdeshayi Sheshas Chayasyang Shakalak Chanitya Nandakya Rama Sharanam Namastu. May Sri Nityananda Rama be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankarshan, Sheshanaga, and the Vishnus who lie in the Karna ocean, Garbha ocean, and the ocean of milk are his plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions. Purport. Sri Surup Damodar Goswami has recorded this verse in his diary to offer his respectful obeisances to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. This verse also appears as the 7th of the first 14 verses of Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Lord Balarama is the original Sankarshan. He assumes 5 other forms to serve Lord Krishna. Text 9. He himself helps in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and he does the work of creation in 4 other forms. Text 10. He executes the orders of Lord Krishna in the work of creation, and in the form of Lord Shesha, he serves Krishna in various ways. Purport. According to expert opinion, Balarama, as the chief of the original quadruple forms, is also the original Sankarshan. Balarama, the first expansion of Krishna, expands himself in 5 forms. 1. Maha Sankarshan. 2. Karanodakashayi Vishnu. 3. Garbhodakashayi. 4. Chirodakashayi. And 5. Shesha. These 5 plenary portions are responsible for both the spiritual and material cosmic manifestations. In these 5 forms, Lord Balaram assists Krishna in his activities. The first 4 of these forms are responsible for the cosmic manifestations, whereas Shesha is responsible for personal service to the Lord. Shesha is called Ananta, or unlimited, because he assists the personality of Godhead in his unlimited expansions by performing an unlimited variety of services. Shri Balarama is the servitor Godhead who serves Lord Krishna in all affairs of existence and knowledge. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is the same servitor Godhead, Balarama, performs the same service to Lord Gauranga by constant association. Text 11. In all the forms, he tastes the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. That same Balarama is Lord Nityananda, the companion of Lord Gaurasundar. Text 12. I have explained the 7th verse in 4 subsequent verses. By these verses, all the world can know the truth of Lord Nityananda. 13. I surrender under the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, who is known as Sankarshan, in the midst of the Chaturvyuha, consisting of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. He possesses full opulences and resides in Vaikuntha Loka, far beyond the material creation. Purport. This is a verse from Sri Sarup Damodar Goswami's diary. It appears as the 8th of the 14 verses of Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. I want to read that verse because I forgot that this is the 8th verse. Mayai te vyapi vaikuntha loke purnaishvarye Sri Chaturvyuhamadye rupam yasyobd bhati sankarshanakyam tam Sri Nityananda Ramam prabhadye. I surrender under the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Rama, who is known as Sankarshan, in the midst of the Chaturvyuha, consisting of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. He possesses full opulences and resides in Vaikuntha Loka, far beyond the material creation. Purport. This is a verse from Sri Sarup Damodar Goswami's diary. It appears as the 8th of the first 14 verses of Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Text 14. Beyond the material nature lies the realm known as Parabyoma, the spiritual sky. Like Lord Krishna himself, it possesses all transcendental attributes, such as the 6 opulences. Purport. According to Sankhya philosophy, the material cosmos is composed of 24 elements. The 5 gross material elements, the 3 subtle material elements, the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, the 5 active senses, the 5 objects of sense pleasure, and the Mahatattva, the total material energy. Empiric philosophers, unable to go beyond these elements, speculate that anything beyond them must be avyakta, or inexplicable. But the world beyond the 24 elements is not inexplicable, for it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as the eternal Sanatana nature. Beyond the manifested and unmanifested existence of material nature, Vyakta is the Sanatana nature, which is called the Parabhyoma, or the spiritual sky. Since that nature is spiritual in quality, there are no qualitative differences there. Everything there is spiritual, everything is good, and everything possesses the spiritual form of Sri Krishna himself. That spiritual sky is the manifested internal potency of Sri Krishna. It is distinct from the material sky, manifested by his external potency. The all-pervading Brahman, composed of the impersonal glowing rays of Sri Krishna, exists in the spiritual world with the Vaikuntha planets. We can get some idea of that spiritual sky by a comparison to the material sky, for the rays of the sun in the material sky can be compared to the Brahmajyoti, the glowing rays of the personality of Godhead. In the Brahmajyoti, there are unlimited Vaikuntha planets, which are spiritual and therefore self-luminous, with a glow many times greater than that of the sun. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, his innumerable plenary portions, and the portions of his plenary portions dominate each Vaikuntha planet. In the highest region of the spiritual sky is the planet called Krishna Loka, which has 3 divisions, namely Dwarka, Mathura, and Goloka, or Gokula. To a gross materialist, this kingdom of God, Vaikuntha, is certainly a mystery. But to an ignorant man, everything is a mystery, for want of sufficient knowledge. The kingdom of God is not a myth. Even the material planets, which float over our heads in the millions and billions, are still a mystery to the ignorant. Material scientists are now attempting to penetrate this mystery, and the day may come when the people of this earth may be able to travel in outer space and see the variegatedness of these millions of planets with their own eyes. In every material planet, there is as much material variegatedness as we find in our own planet. This planet Earth is but an insignificant spot in the cosmic structure. Yet foolish men, puffed up by a false sense of scientific advancement, have concentrated their energy in the pursuit of so-called economic development on this planet, not knowing of the variegated economic facilities available on other planets. According to modern astronomy, the gravity of the moon is different from that of the Earth. Therefore, one who goes to the moon will be able to pick up large weights and jump vast distances. In the Ramayana, Hanuman is described as being able to lift huge weights as heavy as hills and jump over the ocean. Modern astronomy has confirmed that this is indeed possible. The disease of the modern civilized man is his disbelief of everything in the revealed scriptures. Faithless non-believers cannot make progress in spiritual realization, for they cannot understand the spiritual potency. The small fruit of a banyan contains hundreds of seeds, and each seed is the potency to produce another banyan tree, with the potency to produce millions more of such fruits. This law of nature is visible before us, although how it works is beyond our understanding. But this is but an insignificant example of the potency of Godhead. There are many similar phenomena that no scientist can explain. Everything, in fact, is inconceivable, for the truth is revealed only to the proper persons. Although there are varieties of personalities, from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, all of whom are living beings, their development of knowledge is different. Therefore, we have to gather knowledge from the right source. Indeed, in reality, we can get knowledge only from the Vedic sources. The four Vedas, with their supplementary Puranas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and their corollaries, which are known as Smritis, are all authorized sources of knowledge. If we are at all to gather knowledge, we must gather it from these sources without hesitation. Revealed knowledge may in the beginning be unbelievable because of our paradoxical desire to verify everything with our tiny brains. But the speculative means of attaining knowledge is always imperfect. The perfect knowledge propounded in the revealed scriptures is confirmed by the great acharyas, who have left ample commentations upon them. None of these acharyas has disbelieved in the Shastras. One who disbelieves in the Shastras is an atheist, and we should not consult an atheist, however great he may be. A staunch believer in the Shastras, with all their diversities, is the right person from whom to gather real knowledge. Such knowledge may seem inconceivable in the beginning, but when put forward by the proper authority, its meaning is revealed, and then one no longer has any doubts about it. Text 15. That Vaikuntha region is all-pervading, infinite, and supreme. It is the residence of Lord Krishna and his incarnations. And I'm stopping here. This is a good verse to stop at. So I know it's a little bit short of time because we read some and then we had to repeat. But anyway, we heard some very deep, relishable nectar about Srimati Radharani and Krishna's feelings for her and her feelings for him. Now we're beginning to hear the glories of Lord Balarama. So we'll stop here, and if anyone has any reflections or desires to discuss further, please be our guest. And thanks for to Rati and and Jivamaya for blowing the whistle that there was something else going on, so that you could hear that super nectar without distraction. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Something from Daya Nitai.
You speak so soft, I don't know how anybody's going to hear you.
Something from Daya Nitai.
Like you're speaking to yourself all the time. Okay, Daya Nitai, Hare Krishna.
He says, Dear and respected Srila Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisances. All glories to your holiness. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. As I am not understanding fully what exactly makes the author fear the camel-like fools as much as he expresses, and how it makes him happy that they cannot understand the topics under discussion, would you want to please explain?
Lord Jesus said, don't cast your pearls before swine. when you cast pearls and a swine eats it, where does it go? It's useless. It's wasted. So when the camel-like non-devotees hear these things and they spew out, doubts and speculations and contrary ideas that confuse the atmosphere, that's very disconcerting. So if those people can't understand this at all and can't hear it and won't hear it and just don't hear it, that gives Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami great pleasure. Because in this way, the scriptures are maintain their purity. I explained yesterday what camel-like means.
Radharaman Prabhu quoted something.
Radharaman, where the heck are you? You're usually sitting right here in front of us. Radharaman's got some heavy hay fever coming up, so he doesn't want to sneeze and contaminate our little room here, our little inner sanctum. So he's very kindly, listening from his own room. Okay, Radharaman, what do you got?
He says, he quotes from 5:14 purport, that we should not consult an atheist, however great he may be.
Yes. Because the atheists make things up out of their own speculative, imperfect, limited pea brains. And therefore what they spill out is not very helpful. There's a Bengali saying, what will a goat not eat? And what will a madman not speak? Anything else?
Dalanitai Prabhu said, thank you, Srila Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Dalanitai. Hare Krishna. The reception was good today, huh? No problems? Really good. That was that one Saturday was odd. Hey Rati, you had to think about this one, right? You've been storing it up like a slingshot. It's going to come out like gangbusters.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I have a question. We know that in the material world we are different from our bodies, and even though we think that we are moving our bodily limbs, actually we are only desiring things, and the demigods are moving them. And it seems she's still writing. How is this organized in the spiritual world when we are not different from our own bodies?
The spiritual world is made of love of Krishna. And the force that causes the movements of the different living beings are all done out of their love for Krishna. Everything. There's nothing except love for Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. Just as here, time is the force that changes everything, and the modes of nature are the instrumental energy that manifests those changes, the desires of the living entities, the material desires of living entities. In the spiritual world, there are no material desires. There are no material modes of nature. Everything there is Satchidananda. It's all Chintamani, it's spiritual energy. All the forms. Therefore, all the forms want to serve Krishna spontaneously. And therefore they're given such facility that they know whatever they need to know automatically, spontaneously, without any kind of, school or training or whatever. It's the source of all arts, it's the source of all sciences, it's the source of all perfection. It's the source of everything. And it's described here in one of the verses we just read, or one of the purports, that the Lord, by glancing at the material nature, he amalgamates his own form. His own form is reflected into the material energy. Therefore, all the things, all the information content, all the varieties of living beings, all the living environments, they're all reflected, amalgamated, coming from Krishna. That, just like you stand in front of a mirror and the light reflected from your body shows your form in the mirror, which looks like you, but it's different. So this is inconceivable, but this is a three-dimensional, reflection. So all of the information content that's needed to do all of that is contained within the body of Mahavishnu, and then Mahavishnu amalgamates in a reflective principle into the material energy, and therefore it all moves in a way that looks like it's real, but it isn't. Just as you dream at night, and it looks like what's happening, but it's just a dream. In other words, we're living literally in Mahavishnu's dream. And if you say, how does that work? Well, that's beyond any of us. Prabhupada would often say, just go there and find out. That would be the question. How can I go there? That sounds like the most wonderful place. How can I go there? And the science of Bhakti Yoga, the science of Krishna consciousness, explains how we can go there.
Another question from Rati Manjari. She says, thank you, very beautiful. I have another question, if you permit. A younger devotee asked me about how we could ever turn ourselves away from the Supreme Lord, who is so attractive. How would you say that we need to answer the origin of the jiva?
Well, Prabhupada answered it very simply. A man and woman fall in love, they get together, and they're each other's love, life, and soul, and then one day she runs off after another man, or he runs off after another woman. How is that? What's the principle? The principle is to enjoy. So even though, the spiritual world is so wonderful, the nature, the enjoying spirit is there in the soul. It never leaves the soul. It is what the soul is made of, the enjoying spirit. But the individual living beings are infinitesimal parts of the enjoying spirit of Krishna. So therefore, their capacity to enjoy is very limited, and they're also independent. Not completely independent, autonomous. Each one of them is an individual soul and has a minute degree of independence. Just like Krishna, he has full independence. He can do whatever he wants without impediments. Whenever he wants to do something, all the energy immediately acts in such a way, automatically, spontaneously, to satisfy that desire. He can look at something and he can know everything about that thing just by glancing. So the soul has a little infinitesimal part of that eternal nature, of that cognitive ability, and of the ability to enjoy. And with that independence, that slight degree of independence, he can always, at every moment, misuse it properly or use it properly. How that happens, you cannot understand from here. If you think that you can or you should be able to, then you're not ready to understand Krishna consciousness. This is what is called surrender. This is surrender. You have to hear without doubt, without argument, with love, and with faith. That's the way to find out. And until that is there, somebody explain it to you, inside and out. We heard just now the potencies of the Lord, the banyan tree. It's got hundreds, thousands of fruits, and in each banyan tree there's hundreds of seeds, and each one of those seeds can produce hundreds of banyan trees. So the scientists may understand the chemical reactions and everything that are going on, but they can't understand how that's happening. What caused that to be? What caused that mystic potency to happen like that? Or one flower. You look at one flower with the intricate, golden, finest filigree and colorful patterns, and each one that comes out the same. Or you see some birds, some varieties of birds, especially tropical birds. They're so colorful and the patterns in there, and they're all exactly the same. How is that possible? We can't understand that unless you understand Krishna. So these, it's not, the essence is this, that you're in time and space. We're controlled by time and space in this material world. We're caught in three-dimensional time and space. But where we came from, Goloka Vrindavan, there is no time and space. There is no past, present, and future in the way that we know it. So how can you look and analyze that and understand it with your limited mind and intelligence and senses? It's impossible. So if you keep trying to in that way, then you can't hear submissively. But as soon as you hear actually submissively and accept, through the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna, then you will gradually understand it. But to do that, you have to first purify your senses. You have to awaken your spiritual senses. These things can only be understood by revelation through the spiritual mind and senses. And everyone has a spiritual mind and senses. It's now just covered over. Yes.
She says, but does that mean that we were not Krishna conscious enough?
See, you're thinking in terms of enough. You're thinking in terms of enough. What does that mean that you're thinking in terms of enough? We weren't Krishna conscious enough? See, what happens if you take this to the logical conclusion? If it wasn't because of our desire that brought us here, then what did? Then it's Krishna's fault. It's not our fault. And then you make, by your mental concoction, Krishna to be a kind of God that is, throwing us into the material world and look at that, making fun of us and enjoying us suffer. No, it's our desire. We wanted to come here. You can say, how is that? I'm asking you. I'm asking you. How that means your independence is there, and it is always possible to do something inconceivable. Just like Krishna, he can do anything inconceivable. So you have the potency to do something inconceivable. Therefore, you're a part of Krishna. They put out advertisements now, on the cigarette packages that are grossly graphic about what it will do to you, and a big sign, this will kill you. And still they smoke it. Why? Because they're under ignorance and they think they're enjoying. So you can think like this forever, and you will never understand. Why did I fall? If Krishna consciousness was so blissful and perfect, why did I leave? You can't understand. You can't even understand when. The whole cosmic manifestation from beginning to end is 311 trillion years, more. And that's just the breath of Mahavishnu out and in. 311 trillion years. And he's an expansion of an expansion of an expansion of an expansion of Krishna, as we just heard. Therefore, that whole time is just a blink in the eye of Krishna. But you're here thinking, oh, it's so horrible. But from the spiritual world, it's just a blink of an eye. So how can you understand? By trying to figure it out yourself. You have to hear and relish. You have to hear and accept it and relish it. And that comes from years and lifetimes of practicing yoga in different forms, and ultimately in bhakti yoga. But it's possible to get that understanding in this lifetime, whether we have qualifications or not, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. But you have to become purified of the results of all of your sins. Yesham twantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva mohanir mukta bhajante mam dridavartaha. You know that verse? 7th chapter. Yesham twantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva mohanir mukta bhajante mam dridavartaha. We're thinking that we have to understand it before we can surrender, but the reality is that you have to surrender before you can understand it. Yesham twantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva mohanir muktam bhajante mam dridavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. This material energy is mine, Krishna says, belongs to me. And divine energy, the divine energy is duratyaya. It's impossible to overcome. But ye yamami prapadyante, by surrendering to Krishna fully, then one can easily cross beyond the material modes of nature, and then you'll find out. Rati, you have to go there to find that out. You can't find that out. You can't know that from here. Therefore, there's nowhere in the Vedic scriptures that explains it. Because you can't explain it. I mean, a person from within the material world can't understand it. It's inconceivable. That's all I can say about that. If you want to read the Prabhupada's full explanation of that, you can read the tall and the crow and tall fruit logic. It's a letter. You can Google it or look it up in the database. Crow and tall fruit logic. I don't think I satisfied anybody. But that's all I know is what I heard from Prabhupada. And I no longer wonder about it. I can tell you honestly, I no longer wonder about it. It no longer bothers me.
So Rati had one more question, and then there's something from Doyle Nitai Prabhu also.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read Rati's first. She said, and should we be afraid that once we finally made it back, it could happen again?
No. You shouldn't be afraid of anything. You give yourself to Krishna. You shouldn't be afraid of anything. That means you're still thinking materially. And if that doesn't satisfy you, I'm sorry, that's all I have. I don't have anything more than that.
She said, yes, you did. It's really good to hear this.
Hare Krishna.
And then from Doyle Nitai, he says, with your permission, how can we propagate before we understand surrender?
How can you propagate before you understand surrender? By following the orders of Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada gave us how many thousands of pages of books that explain it? You're already doing it, Dalnitai. You're already doing it. You're doing that lovely shop that you have, and that window that you keep creatively putting interesting little things in it. And people are sometimes coming up and saying, hey, Hare Krishna, I saw that somewhere. And they're taking one of your sandwiches and Madhananda sandwiches and getting a taste that they haven't had before. That's how it happens. Through the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, for the mercy of Lord Chaitanya's eternal associates that came here to show us and to start this tsunami of love that's now spreading around the world. Learning how to swim in that tsunami. But we have to follow the principles. We have to follow the regulator principles. We have to follow the sadhana that was given to us by Lord Chaitanya, and then through the Goswamis and the Sri Prabhupada. We have to accept those things that are favorable for our spiritual advancement. We have to reject those things that are not favorable, and we have to learn what they are to do that. We have to feel the presence of the Lord through that, when we actually do that strictly for long enough to leave behind enough time between the last time we did some nonsense till now, and it will go gradually into the background, and then we will feel the presence of Krishna in our hearts and around us, even during the day. And then we will feel protected. And then we don't fear. Even though we're not there yet, we don't fear. And then our will becomes extremely desires to fulfill the will of Krishna. Jesus said, not my, but thy will, O Lord. It's the same idea. And then eventually, you become meek and humble. And then you can hear completely and want to go completely back to the spiritual world without even thinking about this material world. Then even if you're in the material world, in that consciousness, things go on, but you're in another place.
One comment from Dalnitai says, Hare Krishna, thank you once again and again.
Hare Krishna again and again.
And Dayanidhi Das Vanachari.
Oh, Dayanidhi Das Vanachari. Hare Krishna.
He says, Dear Maharaj Keshava Bharti, I bow down at your lotus feet, keeping your sweet remembrance in my heart. I miss you. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Dayanidhi was my translator when I went down to Italy in 1980? Sometime around 1980, and I spent time in Italy, and we did a marathon to make new devotees because they had just gotten Villa Vrindavan, but there were not enough devotees to populate it. So we went down there to populate Villa Vrindavan and make devotees. And we traveled around. We had a driver, I can't remember his name, and we drove here and there, and they would call us up, and we would go wherever there was a hot prospect. It was ecstatic. Dayanidhi, I'll always remember the times we spent together making devotees. It was just out of this world. Hare Krishna.
Ati Manjari says, thank you for revealing your heart. And Dayanidhi Das Vanachari says, Maharaj, such sweet time.
Oh yeah, nothing like it. It was highlight. Our lifetime, we have highlights. That was one really strong highlight. That taste, the taste of giving yourself entirely just to helping other people and going wherever you have to go and meeting whatever you have to meet, whatever obstacle you have to meet.
He also writes, I miss you so much.
I miss you too, Hare Krishna. Where are you now? Are you in Italy? And in Italy, where are you? He's probably crying. He can't write. I know him. He's so advanced. Hare Krishna. All right, all of you, I thank you so much. We had a little extra time today because we had that little short reading because we had some technical difficulties in the beginning. May we all go back to Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet together by hearing his glories and the glories of Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, They're all together, Lord Chaitanya, in 5 features. We'll hear about that in the 7th chapter. Okay. Thank you very much. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. We'll see you tomorrow night. Same time, same place. Hare Krishna.